Today's video is another reason why, as a Christian, you should not let an atheist teach you the Bible. What we're going to be looking at is an attempt by an atheist to analyze the book of Genesis. Hi, welcome to the channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Israel. We do videos just like this to help you avoid being deceived and also mastering the Bible at the same time. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you press the thumbs up button and definitely consider subscribing if you like what we're doing here.
Sarah lived to be 127 years old. She died at Kiriath Arba, that is, Hebron, in the land of Canaan, and Abraham went to mourn for Sarah and to weep over her. Well, that was abrupt. Way to begin the chapter. She got old and died. No details. They don't matter to the Bible people. We got more genealogies to get to or something. Give Sarah some credit here, though. She's actually the only woman in the Bible whose age of death we ever learn. And it turns out she lives longer than any other woman in the Bible, as far as we can tell. So, yay? Her obituary is going to have a lot of weird tangents about her lifelong jealous battles with her slave Hagar, but otherwise, a very full life. Is it weird that, like, a minute after Abraham was about to murder his son, he's now mourning over the loss of his wife? I can't tell which deaths matter to him.
So he basically started off there highlighting two major points, really. One about Sarah and just basically how her life is going to be a mix-up of just some crazy stuff and ultimately just some good stuff ultimately. And I guess what is a surprise in that, really and truly, if that is what happens in everyone's life. There's good stuff that happens in people's lives and there's obviously bad stuff that happens in people's lives as well. But really and truly, the main thing he kind of talked about was Abraham's dynamic in regards to what's happened previously with Isaac and now what's actually happening with his wife, Sarah. Now, we just covered that in a previous session. I'll link that down below and also other videos in the previous sessions as well. Also, I've got a standalone video on Genesis 22. I'll leave that link down below as well. But the point is, there's so much bigger stuff going on in regards to Genesis 22. And a mistake he actually made, if we go to the text, as you can see here, right? He's obviously reading from the NIV, so we can basically do the same. He talks about how a minute ago he was just basically mourning or didn't really care about killing his son. Now he's worried about Sarah. The fact of the matter is, when you get to the bottom of this particular text, what do we see? It talks about how Abraham returned and he went to live in Beersheba basically again. And it talks about how even the NIV even renders it even more succinct for him, which is problematic because it says sometime later. So it's not even at the same time that what happened previously with Isaac actually happened. There's obviously time that's actually passed based on what the narrative kind of suggests to us. And then now Sarah dies. So firstly, his whole mindset, as we saw in the previous session with Genesis 22, was problematic, but even more so, the narrative in itself is telling you and indicating to you that time has ultimately passed. So really and truly, why wouldn't he mourn for his wife dying, especially if there's no concept in his mind or there's no belief in his mind, as there was for Isaac, that Isaac could be raised from the dead. He has no reason to believe that Sarah would be raised from the dead. So therefore, it's illogical for him to now mourn, knowing that he's not obviously going to see her again while on earth.
He said, "I am a foreigner and stranger among you. Sell me some property for a burial site here so I can bury my dead." Look at him negotiating again. He is at the funeral and tells these guys, "See this body? Pity me. Now sell me some of your finest land so I can put her 6 feet under."
So the interesting thing about this is maybe Hemet Meta is not too in tune with just the customs of the day, right? The fact of the matter is, previously in times past, they were quick and active to bury their dead. It's not like today where someone's dead and you could have a week, 2 weeks, even sometimes even longer before you ultimately have the funeral. The point is, he ultimately is in this situation. He's now looking for somewhere to bury his dead wife. He's not going to drag this out. This was, I guess, him not understanding, it would seem, the context of ultimately what's actually happening here. That's why he's so persistent on finding a place to bury her, because he's trying to do this relatively quickly.
Replied to Abraham, "Sir, listen to us. You are a mighty prince among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our tombs. None of us will refuse you his tomb for burying your dead." Oh, no haggling this time? That's no fun. And if they're willing to give up the choicest of their tombs, what were the cheap ones like? It's a tomb. You could bury her in a cardboard box. It won't matter, she's dead. But wait, Abraham doesn't just want a tomb. He wants more. He wants some real estate.
All right, so there's a couple of things which are really significant to point out. Firstly, think about this. He's talking about the Hittites, these particular individuals being willing to offer Abraham the best tombs, right? And this kind of makes sense in the flow of the narrative, considering Abraham has been dwelling in and around this particular location for several years. And also at the same time, he's ultimately even gone out to war with these particular men. It talks about how they were his confederates, they were like his partners, his teammates. Many of us today, we don't put ourselves in a position where we say, look, just get any piece of ground and just put the person in the burial, like in the ground, basically. The funeral business is one of the most expensive, one of the most lucrative businesses to get into, right? So that in itself should show you that people take their time and actually fork out a lot of money, whether rightly or wrongly, when it comes to burying their dead loved ones, even though they know the dead one will not be able to experience or even care about where they're ultimately being buried.
Abraham rose and bowed down before the people of the land, the Hittites. He said to them, "If you are willing to let me bury my dead, then listen to me and intercede with Ephron, son of Zohar, on my behalf, so he will sell me the cave of Machpelah, which belongs to him and is at the end of his field. Ask him to sell it to me for the full price as a burial site among you." We went from, "Can I have a tomb?" to "Sure, we'll give you a tomb," to "Interesting, let me think about it, and you know what? I want that entire cave."
Now, it's interesting how he kind of views this whole situation. The Hittites ask him, these men ask Abraham, look, you can have the choices, you can have the best of our burial grounds. And what does Abraham do? He now picks out a particular location, and even in the narrative, as you saw on screen, we can even show it now, right? What does he say? Let this guy Ephron, right, son of Zohar, sell me the cave of Machpelah. Where is it? Which belongs to him and is what? Is at the end of his field. Why is this significant? Because this cave, this tomb that he wants, is located obviously in a field. So you're telling me that Abraham is now going to say, look, let me have the cave, but the field which is basically surrounding it, like, you keep that for yourself. So in order for him to ever get to his burying ground and all these different kind of things, he's going to have to now be passing through someone else's land. That doesn't make any sense. It's like saying, look, you know what, there's a garden in someone's piece of land, and you say, you know what, let me just buy your garden, but forget about the land which is obviously surrounding it. It doesn't make sense. It's not really practical.
Ephron the Hittite was sitting among his people, and he replied to Abraham in the hearing of all the Hittites who had come to the gate of his city. "No, my lord," he said, "listen to me. I give you the field, and I give you the cave that is in it. I give it to you in the presence of my people. Bury your dead." Damn, he's giving it away? Very nice of him. Too nice. Unusually nice. That can't be good. Seems like a major red flag.
Now, another thing for you to consider, he basically will bring this up in probably the next clip, right, where he's going to talk about how there's potentially some underhanded tactics going on by this Ephron guy. And I'm not here to say that's not the case, but at the same time, as I've already explained, these men were confederate ultimately. And if he's dwelling nicely with these people, there's no reason why we should just 100% just assume and say, you know what, he's doing something underhanded. I'm not even saying he isn't, but there are, as I've alluded to, things in the narrative which do suggest to us potentially that this could have just been him being very nice.
And he said to Ephron in their hearing, "Listen to me, if you will. I will pay the price of the field. Accept it from me so I can bury my dead there." Ephron answered Abraham, "Listen to me, my lord. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver. But what is that between you and me? Bury your dead." Ephron's like, "I'll give you a price, but seriously, just take it. That rotting body is starting to smell and you need to bury her ASAP." Why does everyone precede their statements with, "Listen to me, we don't have another choice"? This is actually an interesting trick Ephron is trying to pull. If he generously gives away the land for the burial, he can still claim to own it. But Abraham sees right through that and insists on paying money for it so there can be no doubt it's his.
Isn't it funny, and just the irony, he mentioned previously about Abraham's trying to do quick business while his wife's there at the funeral. But now he's saying jokingly that these guys are saying, look, take the land quickly, take the tomb because the body's stinking. So it's interesting. This is the same kind of thing we see over and over again. Hemant will play both sides of the field, just for an entertainment purpose. But at the same time, it causes much problems when you start analyzing what he's actually saying. Now, he, like I said, mentioned in this particular clip about potential underhanding tactics by this guy Ephron, and yeah, that might actually be the case, right? If Abraham doesn't pay any money or give him any collateral, any consideration, as we talk about in contract law, then he would be able to try and potentially say, look, this is still my land. And we talked about this in the previous session. I brought it up about how the cave is in a field area. So imagine if he did just say he wants the cave and didn't take the field. That would be logistically problematic anyway, let alone if he was trying to be underhanded and was basically trying to just give him a burying ground for a few centuries or a few decades or whatever, a few years, but then be able to still reclaim it in the end anyway.
Abraham agreed to Ephron's terms and weighed out for him the price he had named in the hearing of the Hittites, 400 shekels of silver, according to the weight current among the merchants. So Ephron's field in Machpelah, near Mamre, both the field and the cave in it, and all the trees within the borders of the field, was deeded to Abraham as his property in the presence of all the Hittites who had come to the gate of the city. Afterward, Abraham buried his wife Sarah in the cave in the field of Machpelah near Mamre, which is at Hebron, in the land of Canaan. So the field and the cave in it were deeded to Abraham by the Hittites as a burial site. I'm pretty sure they just said the same thing 3 different times. A little side note here. Abraham just bought what is now called the Cave of the Patriarchs. After the Temple Mount, Jewish people consider it the second holiest spot in the world. Somehow, that fact didn't make it in the Bible because we were too busy learning about who sold it and where it's located. I don't understand why we need this chapter. Here, I'll do the whole thing right now. Sarah died. Then Abraham bought some fancy land to bury her. Seriously.
If you actually look at what it actually says, it's giving additional details as the narrative unfolds. It talks about the cave and the field, about him actually weighing the money and giving it to Ephron in the sight of all of the people. Then it talks about him actually burying his wife Sarah there. And then it basically concludes, right, and says, look, he paid the money, he buried his wife, and he got the cave and the field. This would even make more sense, even in the way in which he's rendering the text explicitly and just saying, look, Ephron was doing something underhanded. It does seem like he just did this as like a filler episode, really. This burial ground is actually significant. He mentioned this himself in today's video. The point is, this burial ground comes up over and over again. Abraham is buried here. Abraham's son and his grandson are buried here, along with their wives. So the fact of the matter is, this is so significant, it even comes back up in the New Testament. He talked about tradition and the Jews saying this is like arguably the second most holy place on the earth. At the end of the day, that's just a tradition. So why would the Bible basically highlight this as some holy, holy, holy special place? Even though, like I said, if you follow this through the narrative, in the Old Testament and also in the New Testament, this place is still highlighted again. This is an atheist missing the mark, trying to analyze the biblical text and putting things in the wrong place and really not understanding and missing key points of the culture of the day. And he really wants us to take him seriously when it comes to analyzing the Bible. No thanks.